And so we nosedive from passion and frenzy into mediocrity. The most bang average award we give for the most bang average game. It is, of course, the Peter Willington Memorial. It's like a ham sandwich or Keane award for Okayest Game of the Year. Perhaps, no, it is my favorite award name by far. Um, Previous winners in 2016, Gears of War 4, in 2017, Middle Earth Shadow of War, in 2018, Far Cry 5, in 2019, a tie between Gears 5 and Days Gone, and in 2020, Coffee Talk. I gotta say, by the way, two entries from the same franchise having wins on this for Gears of War is it's poor. I don't think I'd noticed that before.
When's Gears 6 out? Do you think they can go
Don't know.
back to back to back?
I would say so. I wouldn't be
It's
shocked.
an absolute fair shout.
Yeah.
Yep.
The nominees this year: Axiom Verge 2, Call of the Sea, Chicory, Cyber Shadow, Destruction All Stars, Far Cry 6, Knockout City, New Pokemon Snap, Outriders, and the Ascent. Our kickoff in this topic is Jack Lazell.
I'm gonna take off Far Cry 6 because I had a great time playing the game and really enjoyed it. And it was, it's still an open world Ubi game. It still has all of the tropes, I guess, associated with that. But on top of it, it was a lot of fun. It was really wacky. The writing was good. There were a lot of characters that I really enjoyed and really liked. Not Giovanni Ribisi, but Giancarlo Esposito was fantastic in all of the scenes he was in. He was very, very good. The story kind of held my attention enough for me to kind of buy into it. It was cool. It was better than it had any right to be. Not to like a Guardians of the Galaxy level of better than it had any right to be, but it's in that interesting bracket of like, I really liked Far Cry 6, but I couldn't in good consciousness nominate it for too many other of the categories. But I will say for the couple of weeks that I had playing it, and friend of the show, Matt Niner, was playing it right alongside me as well. And, we did some online co-op and stuff on it and had a ball. It's just a lot of fun. It's a big dumb video game that you play to forget the fucking world outside, and then you move on to the next one. So Far Cry 6 is not a ham sandwich like Far Cry 5. It is a much, much wackier, crazy sandwich with some avocado in it.
Okay. Right. So Far Cry 6 knocked off fairly early doors. Mark, you're next.
I have no idea where the nominations came from for this. I don't think I did, but I would say that Knockout City is better than an average game. I had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, yeah.
It far exceeded the expectations that I had from what I was expecting to be this insidious EA money grab,
Yeah.
And it really
The bar is so low.
it absolutely is.
It's like, what's this fun game that they just put out on Game Pass? What's up with that?
You think they're trying to trick you?
I know.
It must be mining crypto for my Xbox. It must be.
It's again, bringing it back to like the sort of Splatoons of the world where you can just kind of jump in and play a couple of rounds. You don't need to have like any kind of great knowledge of the different techniques and the different balls that you can use. But if you want to spend the time with it, there is at least that next level of depth to understanding how to like parry balls and how you can kind of ricochet them back. And I certainly noticed that when I played it for a little while, I kind of picked up on those things, and then I didn't play it for about 2 weeks, and then I came back to it and everyone was a lot better than me because I just forgot everything. But it's not difficult enough that if you just play a couple of rounds of it, you pick that all back up again pretty quickly. I think Knockout City was... I didn't spend as much time as I think Barry did, but I think it's a good game.
I think it's good. And I think the key thing that you highlight is secret depth is actually kind of there. Like I stopped playing it like I think before season 1 even ended it. But even as I was playing it, and I streamed quite a bit of it as well, I noticed like the meta is developing, and I was like, people are kind of going with the slow throw because obviously everyone instinctively blocks for the full power fast throw ball, but the parry window is so big and laborious that when people do that, if you've slowly thrown the ball, you hit them. It's like little things like that in the earliest days of the game were developing in the community, and I was like, there there is some real depth there, and plus the audio visual stuff we already talked about was pleasant as well.
I went and checked, and I was hoping beyond hope that Mark had nominated it and forgot about it, like he said, but he didn't. So
no,
that's a shame. That would have been fun.
I nominated it because I was just like, I didn't feel as passionately about it as Barry or Mark. I just thought like, yeah, this is all right. It's not bad. I didn't get into it as heavily as you two. It didn't really float my boat as much. I played maybe 3 or 4 hours of it. So I don't know if that's a fair enough assessment to base it on, but the 2 or 3 times I did
to some
play
degree it is.
It is kind of, yeah.
But I will say
Just-
this: there's 2 like big online multiplayer games on here, and this one is far superior to the other. So
100%. Yeah, I just I was just like, look, you know, the whole experience I had with it felt entirely disposable. I could see people buying into the game and really enjoying it, but yeah, for me, I was just like, well, I never need to play this again. Like the last time I played it, I just had such an okay time with it. Like it was like a weird point in the game where like some people were really good, some people were really bad. So sometimes you'd be on a team that would win like massively, and you do all right, and then another time you'd be doing all right, but all right was the best on your team because everyone else didn't have a fucking clue how to do anything. But I was just like, look, I don't feel like I'm really getting anything from this as an experience. But that being said, I can totally accept and understand why other people would like it. And yeah, I don't think it's getting anywhere near winning this category. So we can drop it from here.
Okay. I'm next. Do you know what? And again, this is like, I think this is a discussion between you and me, Mark. I think by the thinnest of margins, I find Axiom Verge 2 better than just bang average.
See, I find it worse than bang average.
Okay, so either way, we agree.
Out and it wins. It wins.
Yeah,
It balances out and it wins.
Yeah, yeah. I could make a case for it. I actually think that if we were doing Axiom Verge, the original Axiom Verge, I probably have it as a stronger contender for this category than Axiom Verge.
And I would have a stronger category to hoof it out because it was way better. I think that was on my top 10 of that particular year.
We are just not in sync at the moment.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mark. I did not get that game at all.
Yeah. Well, it's okay to be wrong, lads.
Have you heard of these Metroid style games? They fucking suck ass.
Oh, Barry. Barry. Right, look,
let's not do it.
Okay, that's not yet. It's not time.
Again, Hollow Knight. All right.
Yeah, okay. It's not.
Anyway,
look, Axiom Verge 2 isn't winning. So,
Harry, I don't know. Are you trying to be the heel on Game of the Year?
He knows I have a couple of very specific buttons, and he's
the secret
pushing
spice
that
lord.
one right now.
Is the secret spice lord.
I'll issue a retraction. I was joshing there. I have my bugbears at Metroid, but I actually do like Metroid style games. I like. I'm being a little bit of a toe rag.
A little bit of a chancer. Barry, we are sticking with you for this next one. Are there any other Metroidvanias left here?
Kind of one-ish, more Zelda-y. I'm looking at them. I'm looking at the ones I nominated, and I've got one that I think is better than okay, and one that I think is probably lesser. Ultimately, I would say Outriders ended up falling actually pretty decently below okay. I thought
fucking game.
I thought the first 2 weekends playing with my pals, aside from the server issues, which every Game Pass game has to have server issues if it's online. Other than that, I thought this might be a fun, decent, okay-ish kind of play on Friday night. You know, it was a mid-pandemic game. Play on Friday night, headset with the guys, having a few drinks will be fine. Numbers go off the enemies when you shoot them. Who cares? The stability when it launched wasn't great, and then once it stabilized, I was like, this is actually pretty subpar. It's really boring. Art direction, audio, world building, just it feels years and years and years out of date. It feels like it belongs in the knockoff Gears era, and here it is in 2021. I would say below the level of okay, so I would take that off.
Like, I nominated it, and I hadn't really thought about it since I nominated it, but just in my head thinking about it now, that game is making me angry with like how atrocious the writing is, how just I fucking hate every single character in that game because they've all been written from 2007, from, you know, just that era of like fucking, you know, just that Marcus Phoenix ilk. But even worse, because like Marcus Phoenix, like he's obviously, he doesn't really have a lot of kind of characterization or emotion, but like he's not a prick where
It's just a wedge.
He's just a wedge. All the characters in this game are just a bunch of arseholes, and they're all just like, oh yeah, whatever. No, fuck off, right? As Barry kind of pointed out there, like the actual kind of gameplay is pretty subpar, and like it's doing this kind of Borderlands Diablo sort of thing, but it doesn't do it anywhere near as enjoyable as those games do. And like Borderlands does get kind of redundant after a while, but at least for these first few hours, I always, if I jump into Borderlands for a couple of hours, I'll have a fun time with it. I was done with Outriders within about the first 20 minutes. So yeah, actually, I did nominate it, but I think it's worse than that.
Okay. So it's who's next? Jack? Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, so I actually bizarrely enjoyed Far Cry more than the next game I'm going to take off the list, considering how excited I was for it. But
I don't know.
Oh no, I mean you can't. Like you can't, because so you're saying you didn't enjoy new Pokemon Snap. Are you saying you didn't enjoy it?
It is such a plain cream cracker of a game. I didn't enjoy it. I have no anger towards it. Do you know what the summation, and this is a true fucking story of my ambivalence towards new Pokemon Snap is, right? As much as I love the cult classic of the original, the ambivalence of me towards this game is that about a month after this game came out, I lost the game card somewhere in this office. And not only do I not care, I never even tried to look for it. It was just gone, and I was like, well, that's that.
Fair enough. I like the game.
This is the perfect game for this category, because I'm just like, what a ball of fucking nothing after all these years that was.
I would disagree. I certainly don't think it is, like one of the standouts of the year, but I have some issues with how that game works mechanically and how they just didn't, like, there's a couple of things I wish that game would do. For a start, I wish that instead of, not only would it have a level select, but it would have like a section select as well, because sometimes I just want to go to a specific section because I don't know what the difference between a 3-star photo of this Pokemon and a 4-star version of this Pokemon is. Let me just go to that fucking section so I can just do it over and over again and just find different ways of throwing an apple at this fucker until something works, right? But I do think that the game has a lot of charm to it. There are a lot of really just like fun like Easter eggs that appear, like having 2 whale lords together. I'm sorry, the fact that this game has whale lords and they're fucking massive and you can't fit one in frame means that for me this is automatically disqualified from being a ham sandwich.
Damn right. Damn right.
The way when
if you would come to me and say done the same thing again, Mark, and said I'd actually argue it's like ever so slightly worse than a ham sandwich, I probably would have let it slide and go off at this point then.
Oh no.
But like when you got Machamp flexing on the beach,
when I came into this,
Pikachu surfing, like Raichu surfing its own tail on the beach with Pikachu. It has so many little moments.
Yeah, and all the hidden legendaries, and the way to unlock them is really cool. I love all the additional tasks and stuff, like get a photo of this Pokemon in this situation, that you have to do that weren't in the original game. Like we didn't have all these additional like fun things that we could do. And it makes the replayability of the levels high for me. I agree with Mark. I guess the section skipping thing is particularly, it can be frustrating, but you can always fast forward to the point that you want to in the level as well if you need to do that. And at very worst, if you need to find out how to get a specific photo, you can always, much like any game, I guess, look it up online or like look at a guide or whatever to try and think. But a lot of the time I didn't want to do that at first. I just wanted to explore through the game. And I think as you kind of unlock more levels and unlock more developments in all of the levels, then the levels become richer and more enjoyable experiences. Clearly Dave didn't like it.
I didn't hate it either. I just
my biggest issue is
it's just a thing that happened at me for a while and then it was lost in the ether, literally and metaphorically.
My biggest issue is just that is not a 60 quid game. That
oh
I think
God,
is the biggest,
God Almighty, it's not.
It's not a 60 quid game, but it's Nintendo we're talking about.
Yeah, I get it's a Mario Golf, like not a 60 quid game.
No.
Like I I'm more like if I had to choose a game, like a first party Nintendo game for just bang averageness, it'd be Mario Golf as the golf bit. But then I actually pissed me off more than
that's what I was gonna say. Is like that got your dander up more than any Psychonaut sideswipe ever could.
I appreciate your ambivalence here, Dave, but I think that you're on a 2-1 here.
And it has Bidoof.
But we also haven't heard from number 4 here. We haven't heard from Barry, because like like if we're going to hear from the borderline, you gentlemen need assistance with your Pokemon problem in general life, we should hear from the one of us who I don't know, Barry, but I definitely, in the past when we've talked Pokemon, you give up the vibe as just generally being the most ambivalent on Pokemon of the 4 of us.
Yeah, honestly, while you were debating that, I just picked up on one thing you referenced, which is that can we write in Psychonauts 2 in this category?
That's what I swear to God, I thought Jack was going to do that. Just to
I did want to do it as a bit, but then I was like, like it'd take too much time.
It's as Route 1 as the Guardian soundtrack doing that.
Great soundtrack, should have won. I'm gonna change it on the document.
the thing on Pokemon Snap is that, kind of like you were saying, it wouldn't have won, but on a quieter year, I would maybe put Nintendo charging 60 quid for this shit as a bad practice thing. But
probably doesn't make the top 50 this year.
It wouldn't have made top 50 this year. So this completely passed me by. Listening to your guys' show, and the general sentiment seemed like I'm someone who I am literally just, I will drop into Pokemon stuff every now and then when Go launched, or whenever they do something mildly interesting with like one of the original characters. I'm the most filthy casual ever. So I would have actually liked this. I loved Snap as a kid, but the general sentiment and the price meant I never touched it. So I can't. Yeah. I don't have a take.
I've not played the original Snap in God knows how long, but for me, I got most of what I kind of hoped for that this game would do in terms of, updating and how it incorporates a lot of the social aspects of it. I think it does a pretty good job with all of that. I don't know, like I can kind of see to some degree that, if you come in and you want like a fully fledged engaged game, no, it is not that. But again, it's fucking Pokemon Snap. But I think they do a really good job with just the interactions between different Pokemon. Like it's all of that in the original Snap, but obviously, expanded upon because there's more space to do that with, and also just a lot more Pokemon to work with. And I don't know, there's enough interactions with different Pokemon in kind of a way that, like, if these were real Pokemon, these are the ways that they probably would interact together. Okay. And then there's like some of the funner moments when you've got that little cactus Pokemon that you can throw apples at and they stick to him, and then he gets caught in a tornado and he goes flying in the air. Like, I know it has enough charm to it that I don't.
I feel like I'm ambivalent. I completely respect Dave's can't be arsed to look for the cartridge thing. I think that's tremendous.
I have some pretty good ideas where it might be. Don't care.
But I mean, that seems like a tremendous
pure
case.
Arse, Dave, it's where it is.
That seems like a tremendous. That seems like a tremendous.
If it was up my arse, it would have had a more significant bearing on my life than it actually did.
No, don't say that. But
it's up there with all of your love for Psychonauts.
If I could have wiped my arse with it, it would have had more use to me.
Oh wow!
You can at least use the cover. That's
look,
sorry,
I'm outvoted, so I'm not gonna. I think it's a fucking travesty that this isn't at least finishing higher, but what can you do? There's no
I've been mugged off way too many times to care about your travesties.
There's no accounting for problems that may border on needing rehab in terms of Pokemon addiction on the panel.
I mean, it kind of sounds like the fucking devs of Psychonauts 2 paid you a hefty sum before we started this podcast.
They just gave us the game to play and we really enjoyed it.
Look,
I will have a look at all of your bank accounts individually.
Jack, I absolutely want to go categorically on the record here, in spite of your conjecture, that if Tim Schafer wants to offer me a job, I'll absolutely take it.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's 4 down. So we're back around to Jack again.
I mean, that was me.
That was Jack.
Oh, that was Jack. Sorry.
Sorry,
so it's Mark.
Oh boy. I want to hear the case because I didn't get a chance to play enough of it. And I kind of feel like even from the bit that I did play, that I could see why the argument would be made for it. And I kind of feel like I really want to play the Switch version because I feel like just the touch controls would be more would just fit more in flow with the mechanics of that game. But the Chicory, is that a standout contender for this, Barry?
I nominated this, and I realistically looking at what's left, I was probably going to take it off next. I think I found it to be, pun not intended, based on the subject matter of the game, fairly beige. I feel like maybe kind of I was playing it kind of wishing I could get something more out of it, and I never got that. And I feel like on some level that might just come down to personal preference. I don't really care for the kind of faux Zelda-y kind of approach. I think the gimmick is really cool, but they wanted to limit
hating on Zelda, hating on Metroid. What a man, Barry.
No, but it's not even that. It's just that kind of style, but really pared back and really basic, other than the drawing mechanic. And the kind of thing is, I thought that the flavor of that game to me would be the coloring and all that other stuff, but they give you really limited colors early on, which I found to be really stifling, and I couldn't really make the world look the way I wanted, which I'm sure might have been a thematic theme or something, or aspect that I wasn't getting. And I ended up bouncing off it and feeling like, you know what, I can kind of respect what this game is. I just don't think it's for me specifically. So I put it down as okayest, but now that I kind of looked at it, I kind of say it's probably better than okay.
My biggest issue that I had when I was playing it is it took me too fucking long to color in like a square, like a section, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Like I wish that it would give some more options, and obviously some of that would take away from the fact that you've got a brush, but just a way to like autofill certain sections would just streamline and speed up some of that. Because sometimes I'll get into a room, like early on, you go into like the caves where it's pitch black, and so you have to use your like paintbrush that illuminates the area. And sometimes, like pretty early on, like within like the second or third screen that you go into, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, right, I have to do this all again. And just filling the screen in just kind of aimlessly. So I'd be curious to play it on the Switch to see if that process is made a lot quicker by the touchscreens. But like that was the kind of thing early on that I was thinking, like, if I got this for like the next 8 or 9 hours, I'm not entirely sure. However whimsical and charming this game is going to be, my patience is going to run really thin with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The whimsy and the charm was cute, but not enough for me to, it wasn't carrying it. You know what I mean? The story and the charm of the world wasn't carrying it to the degree I wanted.
Yeah. I really like that main character, though. He had a real kind of like earnestness, like just a hero spirit, wrapped up in this tiny little dog, and I appreciated that.
Right. So that's Chicory. Next up, Jesus, is it me?
It's you, Dave.
It is me. Oh, this is tough because I've literally, I guess I've only actually played one of these. So maybe that's the one I'll do, unless there's like strong feeling. Either way, I didn't play it long enough to get a good sense of it, but the Ascent.
This fucking game. Yeah.
Another one where I nominated it because it seemed cool but busted, and then the further I get away from it, this is another one like Outriders where I'm like, you know what, this probably doesn't even clear the okay bar. I don't think.
I don't know. It's better than Outriders. I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, there are things that I do really like about that game. Like, that game looks unfucking believable. It's this kind of top down, not quite isometric, like twin stick shooter, and it packs so much detail into this like just fucking dump of a cyberpunk sort of world. It's really strong on the Blade Runner aesthetic, like really fucking strong. Like there are times when you'll go to like a marketplace and like the camera will transition to like you in front of the shop, and you can just tell like that scene in Blade Runner where Harrison Ford is like eating his meal or whatever and the rain's coming down. It invokes a lot of that kind of spirit. It does a really good job with that. And there are times when the camera kind of scales back a bit and you'll go over to like the kind of edge of a railing and you look down and it's just this endless pit, but all along it is this kind of giant cylinder like area that just there's just so much detail. Like it's unbelievable that it packs that much in. Unfortunately, that comes at a price that the game doesn't always run at a kind of a seamless 30 or 60 FPS. The actual kind of game itself, it runs into that sort of issue that all these types of games do, where you end up going into a lot of areas the same, like 3 or 4 times, but the enemies are a little bit stronger now, but your weapons are a little bit stronger. And, there is I got to a point where I had a couple of weapons that just were my go-to, and I didn't really kind of move past them. But it was kind of satisfying. You'd have like those kind of little grunt gremlin creatures, and I'd have like a weapon that would fire 10 rockets in a row and just blast the shit out of them. And I had a lot of fun with that. And the story is just, whatever sci-fi nonsense. I couldn't pick any specific parts of it. There was no part of it that I felt was like bad, but it's certainly, and I don't think it has a particularly strong start as well. And it has some really weird difficulty spikes. There are times when you just get fucking obliterated, like for no rhyme or reason. And it's like, I can't tell if it's like, am I not meant to go to this area yet? Or is just the game just deciding this? Nope, just you're going to die. That's it. You have no say in this. And, like mission wise, it's just a lot of fetch quests really, or just go here and kill a bunch. Like, so it is pretty average in a lot of its game design, but like the aesthetic of it is I do like the way it looks and that just that world,
I don't get the feeling that this is going to win.
I don't know, because it kind of could as well, because in some ways it's also like I'm really disappointed with, because I got about 8 or 9 hours into it and I got burned off from it because it got to a point, it's like, I'm just doing the same fucking thing, but, like the enemies are slightly harder and it doesn't have enough variation in the gameplay to make up for that. So to some degree, it is kind of a ham sandwich, but it's one of those where it wildly oscillates, it doesn't kind of stick to that 7 out of 10. Sometimes it's a 5 out of 10, sometimes it's an 8 out of 10. Yeah. I don't know, Barry, like what were your feelings?
It's funny, because I'm kind of almost in the inverse of you, where I feel like I'm like, you feel like you're thinking it's possibly just above it. I think I'm kind of just below it. For me, I think all the criticisms you made are valid, but also on top of that, I thought bad performance, server issues at launch, which again, this is one downside of Game Pass. Any Game Pass multiplayer thing, they can't seem to hack it. That do you
remember when we tried to play it together?
Yes, it was terrible. Yeah,
it was a fucking mess.
And then just like bad performance. Also, still to this day, I think the longest load time on Series S that I've had to experience. So for me, I feel like, because it's probably more of a disappointing game than an okayest game. Because I think like an okay game, I feel like it could be somewhat mind-numbing and playable in that capacity. Whereas I don't know if I would encourage it. I wouldn't, even on Game Pass, I don't think I'd even tell anyone to give this a spin. It looks nice, but I think you get all the positives you can get from this game from a screenshot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think it does. I think it's sub okay level, and I would use it.
All right, fine.
Okay. So let's see. Gone. Barry.
I have another one on here that is possibly not for me in the style of Chicory. That was a little bit just not my bag, but also I kind of hated it. So on both counts, I think I could take it off. Cyber Shadow, I think, look, I'm not into that recreation of like, it's kind of going for a Ninja Gaiden kind of thing, that is
kind of, you say,
kind of, yeah, legally distinct, super challenging, like 8-bit style platformer, platform action game. A couple of issues there is, first of all, that's not my genre generally, so that's why I think it's probably to some taste it's probably better than okay, and like Chicory, it's just not my bag. And then I simultaneously also want to say it's below okay, because I also found it so frustrating to play. And this is kind of why this genre is not my thing. I'm just like, I was dying a lot, and I was just kind of, this just feels cheap and not fun, and I don't like it. And I think the reason that caused me to kind of nominate it up to okay, despite the fact I actively disliked it, was I was like, this is for someone, but it ain't for me, So that's why I put it there. Yeah. So I think it's a mark game, and I'm sure you would probably argue it above the okay status, would you?
No, I would put it bang on okay because I nominated
Okay.
this as well, and this was actually one of my standout ham sandwiches of the year because
Okay.
How do you have a standout ham sandwich?
it's
Bit of pickle in
because
there.
it's
a must.
Oh,
That's some fucking honey roast.
because it's
Peppered
so
edge.
for this type of like Ninja Gaiden style game, it's so vanilla in that like the level design is it doesn't have any interesting
Can I
parts
say
to
how
it.
much I love how much Mark has to say about the bleh category?
I've had
Like
a lot of
you've ironically come to life during the most ambivalent part of the proceedings.
and I've still got another one to go after this. I played a lot of bang average games this year. Yeah, it's just because I remember I played The Messenger, I want to say maybe about 2 months before Cyber Shadow, and I really liked The Messenger up until a point, and then I couldn't play anymore and it burned me off. But up until that point, I was having a great time with it because other than the writing was that kind of like, this is meta and we're in a video game and we're trying to be funny, and it wasn't at all. But it felt really tight. Like the combat and the controls were really tight in a way that Cyber Shadow it never is. It feels like a Ninja Gaiden knockoff that was on the NES that 3 people remembered and had like rose tinted vision for. It's like this was actually better than Ninja Gaiden. No, it wasn't. It was just because your parents got you that for Christmas instead of Ninja Gaiden. It's for me. It's I could see it as the ham sandwich, but there's also a pretty good like argument for the other two as well. Though I gotta say, did anyone else here play Call of the Sea or even know what Call of the Sea is?
I was going to ask what it was. I think I know it very broadly.
Right.
I know what it
so
is.
This was a game that came out in December of last year. This was actually the first game I played that I had like as of like 2021, and it's this. It's like a first person. To some degree, it's kind of like a walking sim. It's got the thing where there are no other enemies or characters in the game, clearly as a way to disguise the fact that the team wasn't big enough to try and bother doing like more like character rigging and AI and whatever, and tries to kind of work the story around that. But like the story is this woman whose husband has gone missing, so she goes to like this tropical island to try and find him, and like some shit happens from there, but it's
Events transpire.
Yeah, some stuff.
And events transpire, but like it's like graphically it has a little bit of a kind of Bioshock feel to it, and it looks quite nice. But the puzzles are really fucking obtuse, and I didn't understand like what was going on, and had to try and brute force them until the point that I just had to get a guide. But just as a game, there's really not a lot there, but it's still like it's presented well enough that like I still remember the game, a year on, but it's really like unredeeming. I think it's more of a ham sandwich than Cyber Shadow, and I think that's probably because Cyber Shadow is just it probably falls more into the disappointing category of being that type of game that I want to play and enjoy, and it falling far short of that. It's like kind of baby's first Ninja Gaiden. So probably of the two, I would say that Cyber Shadow can come off, and then I think at that point maybe and then I guess we can talk about budget Rocket League.
Yeah, Destruction All Stars kind of sucks, right?
I don't think it sucks.
Just,
it's just
good enough to be like annoying that it wasn't better. It was my kind of stance on it. I remember when it came out and I started playing it. I think Mark actually asked me directly, is this the most ham sandwich game ever? And I think at the time I originally said no was my original response, because I thought at its core, and remember I was Mr. fucking Onrush. I was on my own on that fucking one.
No,
let me tell you.
Excuse me. I am a massive Onrush stan.
Really? Okay, well I must be misremembering.
Onrush was good, man.
Well, I tell you what, Dave, we didn't get it a single award. I'm fairly sure.
No, Onrush fucking slapped.
I think you misremembered that I was the one that didn't like Onrush, and I think you might have just focused on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was scared by that. But anyway, I was like, I love a good Destruction Derby arcadey racer thing. And I think the reason why I think this game is okayest and not like below that, like the shit level, is like at the core of it, the kind of basics are there. They're kind of there, and the presentational stuff is kind of there. The character models are okay. They're not fucking iconic characters who are going to blow your mind. And it's like, it's so okay that I'm like, I wish this was better. Like, this is not bad, but I really wish it was better. And then on top of that, it was like limited arenas, or there's like 3 arenas and they're all identical anyway. Super limited modes and extremely limited multiplayer where I can't remember. There was some, me and my friends went on to try and play it when it launched, and there was some weird limiting thing, like you couldn't play certain modes if you were in a party with other people and shit like that. It was pretty frustrating. But yeah, the reason I think it's okayest and not shitty is, like, I think in the hand it feels okay, and I think the idea is cool. But it was everything surrounding it was so beige that I didn't even keep it installed to say, oh, I'll check back in a few months and see how what the updates are, or the first battle pass or whatever. I was out fairly quick. Yeah, Destruction All Stars was I think it's my one for sure on this one.
I feel like maybe it is Destruction All Stars in this category.
I feel like it's probably maybe like the most well-known game of the year, where people were just a bit of a shoulder shrug to it,
Yeah, because they did a lot of hyping on it as well.
Yeah.
They also charged quite a bit for it at release as well, which I think.
And it was rotten with microtransactions as well, despite being a full price game.
I think maybe what's tough and what might make us inclined to say it's actually below the ham sandwich level is the fact that it doesn't exist in a vacuum. I think in a world where Rocket League doesn't exist, or Onrush didn't exist, you're probably just like, yeah, like a bit more. But like, I think context might drag it out of the category. But I think, like, again,
but we did get a good Rocket League game this year.
Yeah, I can't speak about Call of the Sea. So like, if this came down to a straight vote, I have experience. Again, I haven't played a huge amount of it. I've seen more than I've played, and of these two, my vote would have to go to that by default.
Yeah, same.
I think I would say, like, a lot of the games on here, the reason that I've decided that they're not a ham sandwich is because they have things that are wrong or bad about it. Like Cyber Shadow is meant to be this, the key thing with a game like that is it has to feel right in your hands. You have to feel like you're in control at all times, and that has to work in relationship with the level design and like good enemy placement and good AI. And it doesn't really have any of that. It feels like just a standard like Ninja Gaiden style game. Call of the Sea doesn't really have anything that's bad about it, but it's completely nondescript. It's right there at that 6-7 out of 10, where it's like, I can kind of see what you're doing here, and I get it as someone who is on a real base level of terms of trying to understand game design. It's hard enough creating assets, but the moment you have to start making other characters and you have to start doing all, I remember when I did my uni project 10-11 years ago, I remember people stressing about trying to make other characters, and we're just using the templates that were in the Unreal Engine. And I just went, fuck it, I'm just going to make a first person game and have no other characters in there, no other AI, and just work on the level design. I was doing that 11-12 years ago, and studios are still doing it now. And there's a good reason for it, because it's so much energy would have to go into that.
Ark, are you saying you pioneered solipsistic game environments? I
am the originator of the walking sim. All right, just saying it right there.
So you made Journey and shit, did you?
God, I wish. So I do think that Call of the Sea has a shout, because there's nothing I can point to and say it does this bad or wrong. Where with Destruction All Stars, there's a bunch of things about that, from its execution launch, from the insidious microtransactions, to its connection issues. But then again, you're looking at two different games here. One of them doesn't have to worry about server issues. I do think I'd go with Call of the Sea, but again, I am the only one that played it, so I'm on an island with it.
Here's which is a pun intended, I take it.
Hey.
Didn't think of it, but there you go.
Oh mate, I thought you were making the best joke anyone had made in a while there.
Alas.
Best thing about this category, right, is that we're down to these last two games. And can honestly anyone here tell me they give a single fuck about either of these games?
Yeah. It's a strong category is a weird word to use, but
I think you'd have to go back to 2017 with Middle Earth to get a real impassionate.
I still don't know how we let Dave get away with most disappointing and most average, but we're not to relive that.
Oh, don't
having
start
listened
me
back
again.
to them, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we go to a vote?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Jack.
I mean, I'm going to say Destruction All Stars only because I have no experience of Call of the Sea, but Mark made a real compelling argument for it. So,
Mark.
I will go Call of the Sea.
Dave. I will go Destruction All Stars. Barry.
I'll go Destruction All Stars.
Okay.
Honestly, when I saw it on the nominations, you kind of could tell that was probably going to win. You know,
exactly. I saw it and it was like, wow, I think that's, unless someone has a real fucking strong feeling here, this is winning by a while.
And I think the biggest thing about it as well is like Sony really missed an opportunity here. And I don't know whether it's a case of they struck lightning in the bottle with Rocket League and everything that happened with that, but
that's because no one expected anything of Rocket League. Things that happen organically, again, stop trying to make fetch happen kind of thing. Like if something happens organically, then it's always going to be way more of a thing than if because Sony clearly wanted this to be like a tent pole thing for them, massive online multiplayer thing that everyone was going to be involved with for ages. Like it's not quite an Anthem level failure, because it's not as bad as that, but it's still kind of.
I think as well is it speaks to like with Rocket League, what works is the simplicity of it, and
what works is it is probably one of the best games in the last decade.
But with like Destruction All Stars, it somehow has more moving parts to it, but it still is less interesting to play than Rocket League.
Yeah.
Right. So our winner for the Peter Willington Memorial, it's like a ham sandwich or Keane Award for Okayest Game of the Year 2021 goes to Destruction All Stars. And now, just for the sake of transparency, we will go to the listener poll.
I would love to know what the people thought on this one.
I will say, quite appropriately, like outside of the top one, outside of the top two, everything else is pretty close.
Yeah.
But there is a winner by a decent chunk. With 31% of the vote and vindicating one of the hosts. It's new Pokemon Snap.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh boy. Yeah. Oh wow.
Right, but that did not, in the last category, that did not vindicate me at all. I don't know why you would feel like that.
It's a hollow victory, but he'll take it.
He is a hollow man.
Number 2 on the list is Outriders.
Yeah, fair.
Then it's Knockout City.
Fuck off.
Harsh.
By the way, the comparison. So
no, I agree with that.
31% for new Pokemon Snap and only 13% for Knockout City.
Mm-hmm.
Then 10% for Far Cry 6 and everything else sub 10%.
I'm going to find those 10% of those. In fact, 40% of those people who did me dirty in this category.
Right.